Hello. I want to talk to you a little bit about business models. A business model, in the shape and form that it is here, is a visual way to communicate to stakeholders what the business wants to achieve. There are two here. This one we call a canvas. This one I've actually nicknamed a loop model for the very obvious reason. We'll make our way through both the components of a canvas, and I'll talk to you about the loop model. A couple of definitions. So to me, strategy refers to the choice of business model that the firm uses to compete in the marketplace, not just what it looks like, but also the components of the business model and how you go about doing business. So a technical term refers to the logic of the way the firm operates and how it creates value for its stakeholders. And note that keyword stakeholders. This can be shareholders, employees, the end users of the product, and often society at large is also clearly an important stakeholder in a business model. Tactics refers to the choices that result from the business model it chooses to apply. These are the outcomes of the business model. This is what you actually do to achieve those outcomes. So here we have in its totality, input on the left-hand side, output on the right-hand side, the value proposition or the actual offering in the middle, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Cost and benefits over this side. Revenue, if you're in the government agency or a non-profit, getting funding for it. If you actually have a startup and you want to sell it, you want to do an IPO, that might be, you can understand what that is actually there. So let's go through in a little bit more detail. So on this side we specify who our client segment or segments are. We can be quite specific here and quite have a number. How are we going to get it to the end user or the whoever's next in the supply chain? And the kind of relationship that we're going to have. Is this a sort of a partnership kind of relationship, or is this a very sort of mass market, hands-off, no contact kind of model? The value proposition, absolutely core component here. And I will also talk a lot about the idea of it's not only what we offer, but it's the perception of what we get. Incredibly important. Often businesses are busy doing something, but what its customers are getting isn't really what they're either expecting or necessarily even wanting. So that was output. Let's talk about input. Who are our key partners? It's very rare that a business can actually do the entire vertical part of the supply. So often we'll have software providers, we might use an outsourcing agency for employees, components, all sorts of other things, consulting here. The key activities, what it is we actually need to do, the resources that we need here, and the cost that goes with that. And all of these actually contribute and actually drive and help the value proposition be delivered. So there we have it in that form. Key partners, key activities and resources, if you want to think of it going this way, the value proposition, what the actual offering is and what the get is, these relationships and the how we go about it, how it gets delivered. Is it just purely technological? Is it a one-to-one relationship? And who's actually the beneficiary of this? Now, that sort of infers that it's left to right. I don't actually agree with that. I often, as a marketer, will start with the customer and clients. The next piece is the value proposition. Look at these two pieces and then work on this. What is this going to look like? And then, oh, by the way, how over here are we going to make that happen? Clearly, cost is a driver here. We need to be crucially aware of it, no matter what the environment is. And what are the outcomes or benefits or the revenue or the profit, whatever it is that we're going to actually get from them. Again, a reminder that it's not necessarily left to right. You want to be very thoughtful about that and very careful. Here's a quick reminder of our definitions as we move on to looking at the loop model. So we pulled it down to its components. This is a Ryanair, an Irish carrier. The key driver of its business strategy is to always have the lowest fares, and what it's really trying to do is have very, very, very high profit. And there are three key ways that it actually gets to this. Terrible service, low quality service, and anything that is offered is actually a variable cost, so is an add-on cost. In other words, keep the fixed costs extremely low, so use high utilization of aircraft. Be really, 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 really tough with providers, including employees, and really go for a lot of customers. So this really large volume, and these clearly fit together, the high utilization of aircraft, large volume. So to talk that through, so the model is low fares, large volume, bargain with suppliers, keep fixed costs low, go for high profit. So that's model one as we make our way through this loop model. The second part is low fares, so we go to this large volume, high aircraft utilization, low fixed cost per passenger, high profit. The third way through this is now low quality service expected. Ryanair makes absolutely no promise. It gets you from A to B and that's it. And often not even the B that you want to go to. You'll often land on an ancillary airport outside a major city, for example. No food, nothing's free at all. Pay for it. Variable costs, obviously, the company's only accruing costs if they're intending to sell it or about to sell it. Additional revenue here, high profit. And all of these fit in with reinvestment that goes back to being able to offer the lowest fares. Put them all together and you have a very comprehensive model. If you feel like it, I strongly encourage you to use this. I call it sense testing, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. If you're doing something here and it doesn't end up with your end variable, then the model is actually not working. So that's, and just by the way, Michael O'Reilly says this. He also describes himself as the meanest man in the world, a very rich man as well. Now, the next part of this is what we call virtuous cycles, incredibly powerful. So in his case, the case of Ryanair, each of the virtual cycles starts and ends with lowest fares. And then it builds its way across a large volume, bargaining with suppliers, low fixed cost, lowest fares. So there are three cycles really. The first one is about bargaining power and low fixed cost. The second one is high aircraft utilization, low fixed cost per passenger. The third one is low quality, no meals, variable costs and low airfares. And so these virtuous cycles are incredibly powerful and often will drive a business to huge amounts of success. You might want to look at another one of my videos about ambidexterity. Now this is one part of ambidexterity. This is doing business, current business, more and more effectively and efficiently and refining that. However, we're creating a new business model, what we call green triangle stuff, is quite different to this, unless you create a virtuous cycle of innovation. So here we're putting these back together. You have a couple of choices. In fact, they fit quite nicely together. This is more like I would call this almost a strategic model with these tactical elements in it, whereas this is much more a value proposition offering and a design of how you're actually going to go ahead and deliver that. So that's my story about business models.